I never imagined that a simple Saturday afternoon at home could spiral into one of the most confusing, thrilling, and terrifying experiences of my life. My name is Alex, and to most people, I'm just your average guy working a 9-to-5 in a small marketing firm. But there's a side of me that no one knows about, not my coworkers, not my parents, and certainly not my girlfriend, Isabella, at least, that's what I thought. I've always been curious about the world of crossdressing. It started subtly, almost innocently, as a fascination with the way clothes could transform someone entirely. The soft fabric of a dress, the way makeup could sharpen or soften features, even the thrill of wearing high heels quietly around my apartment when no one was watching, it was like stepping into an entirely different version of myself. A version that felt alive in ways my regular life rarely allowed. But this secret wasn't just about clothing or aesthetics. It was personal. Vulnerable. Every time I dressed up, it felt like peeling back a layer of myself that I could never show publicly. The rush was exhilarating, but it was paired with a sharp edge of fear. What if someone found out? What would they think? Worse, what would Isabella think? Isabella and I have been together for almost 2 years. She's brilliant, beautiful, and disarmingly honest, with this way of reading people that sometimes makes me feel like she can see straight through my soul. Our relationship has been easy in many ways, but also complicated. There are parts of me I've never shown her, and as much as I adore her, I've always been terrified of her reaction if she discovered my secret life. That Saturday started like any other. The sun was filtering softly through the curtains in our small apartment, giving the living room a warm, golden hue. Isabella had gone out early to run errands, leaving me with an empty, quiet space that invited temptation. The kind of quiet that whispers, "Do it, just this once." And yes, I had planned for this. My little stash of skirts, tights, and makeup was hidden meticulously behind a false panel in my closet. Nobody knew. And yet, sitting there alone, I felt both excitement and dread coiling in my chest. I slipped out of my usual clothes, feeling the thrill of anticipation. Each item I picked, soft cotton, silky fabric, delicate lace, seemed to vibrate with possibility. I had learned to be methodical. The right combination of dress, tights, and shoes could completely transform me. And it wasn't just the physical change that fascinated me. It was the mental shift, the way I could step out of the version of Alex everyone knew and inhabit this bold, vibrant, and undeniably feminine persona. Just as I was adjusting a navy skirt and admiring the subtle sway of the fabric, I heard a soft sound from the hallway. My heart nearly stopped. Isabella? No, it couldn't be. I froze, listening. It was coming from her bedroom, a muffled giggle, a hurried shuffle. Curiosity got the better of me. Slowly, cautiously, I crept toward the hallway, careful not to make a sound that might betray my presence. And then I saw it. Her phone lying on the bed, screen glowing with a notification from a friend. But that wasn't the surprising part. The window beside it was slightly open, and the faintest shimmer of fabric? Something I hadn't seen before. My mind raced, trying to rationalize it. Could it be? Then, the sound of laughter, soft, flirtatious, yet tinged with embarrassment, made my pulse hammer in my ears. I realized with a jolt that Isabella was experimenting too. Not like me exactly, but in her own playful, secretive way. She was trying on one of my skirts. The world seemed to tilt. I felt a rush of emotions, curiosity, excitement, and a strange surge of protectiveness. My girlfriend, this person I thought I knew so completely, had her own secret, and it was intertwined with mine in ways I couldn't yet understand. I wanted to call out, to run in and confess that I'd known about crossdressing all along, but another part of me, a shyer, more cautious part, froze in place. What if I misread it? What if I embarrassed her? What if this changed everything between us? As I watched from the shadows, I realized that our relationship, our dynamic, was about to shift. I didn't yet know how, but the thrill and tension in that quiet apartment hinted at a collision of secrets and desires. And deep down, I felt an exhilarating spark of curiosity. The afternoon that had begun as a simple, solitary indulgence had transformed into a quiet storm of revelation. Little did I know, what I discovered that day would unravel far more than just a playful secret. It would challenge everything I thought I knew about Isabella, about myself, and about the delicate, thrilling world we were both tiptoeing around, unseen, unspoken, yet dangerously close to being exposed. And so it began, an afternoon that would pull me deeper into a tangled web of identity, desire, and secrets. An afternoon where a simple skirt became a key to hidden truths, and where my carefully maintained double life was about to collide with Isabella's own hidden experiments. I was standing at the edge of a revelation, and every heartbeat reminded me that there was no turning back. Sunlight streamed through the tall living room windows, dust motes drifting lazily in the golden rays. The space was quiet, but not empty. The hum of life seemed to linger in the corners, almost expectant. I moved toward my secret stash, hidden carefully behind a false panel in the closet, each item a promise of transformation waiting to be claimed. Fingers traced the edges of skirts, soft and silky, delicate blouses with lace trimming, and tights that felt almost electric to touch. Each piece carried its own thrill, a subtle invitation to step beyond the ordinary. Choosing wasn't about fashion, it was about metamorphosis. The right combination could completely shift not just how I looked, but how I felt, how I moved, how I became someone new. I pulled the skirt over my legs, feeling the fabric glide against my skin, shaping and reshaping me in ways words couldn't capture. The blouse followed, buttons securing snugly, hugging my shoulders, framing my chest in a way that felt foreign and exciting at once. Tights encased my legs, constraining yet empowering, transforming each step into something deliberate, something sensual. When I faced the mirror, I paused. The reflection staring back was familiar, and yet startlingly different. Makeup softened the angles of my face, highlighted eyes that now seemed wider, more expressive. Lips tinged with a subtle pink completed the change. A thrill coursed through me, not vanity, not pretense, but the electric satisfaction of inhabiting a version of myself that existed only in these hidden, private moments. Then came the sound, a faint shuffle from the hallway, subtle but unmistakable. A shiver ran down my spine. Footsteps approached, light and measured, familiar in cadence. My pulse accelerated. Was it Isabella? My mind raced through possibilities, panic mingling with anticipation. I crouched low, heart hammering, and watched from the shadowed corner as she entered the room, not fully noticing me, yet somehow setting the stage for a collision of secrets neither of us were ready for. Every movement, every breath, carried tension. The thrill of being caught mixed with the desire to remain unseen, a dangerous cocktail that made my transformation feel even more potent. Each second stretched, each glance at the mirror a reminder that this dual life, my hidden self and the persona everyone knew, was about to intersect in ways I hadn't anticipated. The skirt clung to me like a second skin, flowing over my hips in a way that made each step feel deliberate, almost ceremonial. I paused by the full-length mirror, studying the way the fabric swayed. My reflection wasn't just a version of Alex, it was someone entirely new, someone daring, delicate, and startlingly bold all at once. I could feel the tension in my shoulders ease slightly, replaced by a strange, thrilling energy. My hands hovered over the shelf of makeup, deliberate and careful. Foundation, blush, eyeliner, each stroke was a tiny rebellion against the version of myself the world expected me to be. When the lipstick finally touched my lips, the mirror reflected a daring confidence I rarely allowed myself. For the first time that day, I let myself imagine stepping outside, fully embraced by this persona, fearless and visible. But the thrill was short-lived. A sudden creak from the other side of the door jolted me back into reality. My pulse raced, my mind spinning. What if Isabella returned early? What if she saw me like this? A mixture of fear and excitement surged through me. Part of me wanted to hide, to retreat into the familiar safety of my normal clothes. Another part, the braver, reckless part, wanted to stand tall, to see how far this could go. I sank onto the couch, adjusting the skirt nervously, trying to calm the rising panic in my chest. The sunlight caught the edges of my tights, glinting faintly, and I realized how exposed I actually was. The thought sent a shiver down my spine. Yet, even as the fear crept in, I couldn't ignore the addictive sense of exhilaration that came with every subtle movement, every glance at the mirror. Minutes passed, each stretching longer than the last. I experimented with small gestures, twirling slowly, letting the skirt flare slightly, practicing the way I might walk if someone were to see me. Every motion was a dance between daring and caution, a rehearsal for a reality I hadn't dared to imagine fully. Then a sound from the hall, the faintest shuffle, the softest hum, made me freeze mid-twirl. My stomach lurched. Isabella. She wasn't supposed to return for another hour. My breath hitched as I pressed myself against the shadowed corner, praying she wouldn't notice anything out of place. My mind raced through contingencies: hide the clothes, wipe off the makeup, act normal. But my body refused to move. Something held me there, glued to the thrill of the moment, trapped between fear and curiosity. Time seemed suspended. I watched as her silhouette appeared at the end of the hall, her movements hesitant, almost playful. She wasn't aware of my transformation yet, but something about her steps, the slight sway, the soft hum of her voice, mirrored the very essence of what I was feeling. It was uncanny, almost as if we were unknowingly echoing each other's secrets. A surge of boldness overcame me. I crept closer to the mirror, adjusting my hair, practicing a subtle smile. Each movement heightened the tension. If Isabella noticed, everything could change in an instant. And yet, the thought of her discovering this side of me, of finally seeing me fully, ignited a warmth that had nothing to do with fear. I thought about our relationship, how open we were about some things, and how silent we were about others. This secret, this hidden passion, had always been mine alone. But now, standing in the reflection of my transformed self, I realized that the secret might not be mine anymore. The possibility that Isabella might understand, or even share in this, flickered in my mind, dangerous and thrilling. Hours seemed to pass in a blur. I tried on shoes, testing the balance of heels that made each step feel precarious yet empowering. I experimented with different poses in front of the mirror, imagining how I would appear if someone walked in. The reflection staring back was unrecognizable, vulnerable, daring, alive. Every detail, from the shimmer of the fabric to the careful arch of my brows, contributed to a persona that felt utterly separate from Alex, yet impossibly intertwined with him. And then, just as I was beginning to savor the moment, a soft click came from the hall. My body froze, heart hammering. The door handle turned slowly, and the unmistakable sound of Isabella's voice called out, playful and unsuspecting. "I'll be back in a sec, don't start anything without me." Her words, casual as they were, made every nerve in my body tingle. She had no idea how close she was, how dangerously close she was to discovering the hidden, thrilling world I had cultivated. I pressed myself into the shadows, holding my breath, caught between the desperate urge to hide and the reckless desire to see what would happen next. Every second stretched unbearably. I could hear her footsteps fade away down the hall, and when silence returned, it was thick, almost suffocating. My body relaxed slightly, but the adrenaline lingered, leaving me both exhilarated and unnervingly aware of how fragile my secret truly was. The afternoon had started as a simple indulgence, but it was transforming into something much more, a game of balance, tension, and risk, with stakes higher than I had ever imagined. In that quiet, charged space, I understood something crucial. My journey wasn't just about clothing, makeup, or the thrill of transformation. It was about exploring boundaries, confronting fear, and discovering parts of myself that had long been hidden. And the most intoxicating part? I knew that Isabella, unknowingly, was about to collide with that world in ways that could change everything. The air felt electric, every sound amplified, every shadow a potential threat. I had thought the thrill of my transformation and the quiet of the house was enough to satisfy me, but now the stakes had changed. Isabella was back, unexpectedly early. Her laughter and the soft click of her shoes in the hall sent my heart into overdrive. Panic and exhilaration collided, leaving me frozen for a fraction of a second. I pressed myself into the corner, skirts swaying slightly with my sudden movement. The heels I had been testing made the shift even more precarious. The unfamiliar balance forced me to hold my body rigid, each muscle tense. My reflection in the mirror, so recently a source of confidence, now mocked me, reflecting the vulnerability I could no longer ignore. Every second she spent in the living room brought the risk of exposure closer. Then she appeared in the doorway. Isabella paused, tilting her head, eyes scanning the room casually. "Alex?" Her voice was curious, unassuming, but in that instant, I realized how fragile my control had become. A misstep, a faint sound, a movement too bold, and she would see everything. My pulse hammered, and my mind raced. Do I freeze? Do I try to cover up? Or do I take the risk and embrace the revelation that had been simmering between us, unspoken and dangerous? My fingers tightened around the edge of the skirt, and I made a snap decision. I would stand tall, fully visible, and see what happened. Stepping into the light, the fabric of the skirt swishing softly around my legs, I forced a calm I didn't feel. Isabella's eyes widened slightly, a flicker of surprise, and then something else, something I wasn't prepared for, curiosity. You look," she began, searching for words. Her voice trembled slightly, but not with judgment. "Wow." A wave of relief collided with fear. Relief that she wasn't immediately upset. Fear that this moment, so long imagined, so carefully staged in private, was now real, unpredictable, raw. I tried to meet her gaze, feeling the weight of our unspoken history, the hidden experiments, the dual lives we had been living in parallel without realizing it. Then came the unexpected twist. Her hand reached toward the pile of clothes I had left on the table, the skirts, tights, and blouses I had been experimenting with. She picked one up slowly, brushing the fabric between her fingers. "So, you've been hiding this?" Her tone was almost playful, but the underlying intensity made my stomach drop. "Yes," I whispered, my voice cracking despite my attempt at composure. I didn't want you to know. I wasn't sure how you'd react." A tense pause followed, the kind that stretches seconds into lifetimes. Isabella's eyes softened, and then narrowed mischievously. "Well, I've been hiding something too." She stepped closer, and my breath hitched. My carefully maintained sense of control wavered. This was no longer just about skirts, tights, or makeup. This was about trust, curiosity, and a dangerous intimacy neither of us had anticipated. She smiled faintly, a mixture of amusement and challenge. In a sudden, chaotic movement, she picked up one of my heels, dangling it teasingly. "Think you can handle this?" she asked, and the energy in the room shifted. It wasn't judgment. It wasn't fear. It was a test, a game, and I was at the center of it. I took a tentative step forward, feeling the swish of my skirt and the shift of my balance in heels. Every motion felt magnified, sensual, fraught with tension. My heart raced, but a part of me, one I rarely let surface, throbbed with exhilaration. For a fleeting moment, the fear of discovery merged with the thrill of exposure, creating an electric, uncontainable energy between us. Then came the near disaster. My heel caught slightly on the edge of the rug, and I stumbled. The skirt slipped just enough to reveal the lace tights beneath, and a gasp escaped my lips. Isabella's eyes widened, and I froze, certain that this would be the moment it all collapsed. But instead of recoiling, she laughed softly, a delicate, melodic sound that sent shivers down my spine. "Careful," she said, stepping closer to steady me. Her fingers brushed mine as she adjusted the skirt subtly, and I felt a dizzying mix of embarrassment and exhilaration. Time seemed to bend around us. The air between us was thick with unspoken tension, each glance a challenge, each movement a test. I realized then that this wasn't just about crossdressing, about hidden desires or secret experiments. It was about intimacy, vulnerability, and trust, about standing in the light and letting someone see the parts of you you've hidden even from yourself. My hands shook slightly as I straightened, heels teetering beneath me. Isabella smiled faintly, stepping back, giving me space but keeping her gaze locked on mine. "You're amazing," she whispered. And in that moment, the walls I had built around my secret self began to crumble, replaced by something dangerous, thrilling, and profoundly human: connection. But just as the tension seemed to ease, a sudden knock at the door jolted us both. My stomach sank. A neighbor? A friend? Someone who shouldn't see this side of me? My heart hammered as Isabella and I exchanged a panicked glance. The secret, so carefully guarded, so electrifyingly personal, was seconds away from exposure. And then, silence. The kind of silence that screams louder than any sound. Our breaths synchronized, shallow and rapid, as the unknown threat loomed just beyond the door. In that suspended moment, I understood the truth: nothing would ever be the same. Every thrill, every fear, every secret we had danced around was now tangled, intertwined, and on the edge of revelation. The next few minutes would define not just our afternoon, but the fragile, electrifying dynamic between us, and the hidden, transformative world I had lived in alone for so long was no longer mine alone to navigate. The knock at the door echoed again, louder this time, sending a jolt straight through me. My heart raced as Isabella's gaze met mine, eyes wide with the same mixture of fear and exhilaration I was feeling. Neither of us moved at first, caught in the electric pause between what had just happened and what might happen next. "Alex, should we?" she whispered, her voice trembling slightly. I swallowed hard. Part of me wanted to sprint, hide, erase every trace of this half-hour transformation before anyone could see. Another part, the bolder, reckless part, wanted to see this through, to face the consequences and finally step fully into the self I had been hiding for so long. Before I could answer, the handle rattled. Someone was trying the door. My pulse thundered in my ears. "Stay calm," Isabella said softly, but there was a quiver in her voice. She stepped closer, brushing her hand lightly against mine, grounding me, even as the fear and tension coiled like steel around my chest. I edged toward the window, glancing for any way out, any escape from the sudden intrusion. My reflection in the mirror caught my eye: Alex, transformed, vulnerable, alive. I realized then that no matter what happened, there was no undoing this moment. This was who I was right now, exposed and electric. The knock came again, insistent, almost demanding. I froze, caught between fleeing and facing the unknown. Isabella's hand tightened around mine. "Whatever happens, we deal with it together," she said. Her words, calm yet charged with emotion, sent a rush of warmth through me, mixing with the adrenaline and fear. I inched closer to the door, heels making soft clicks against the floor, skirt swaying lightly. My breath came in shallow bursts. Whoever was on the other side had no idea what awaited them, no idea how fragile, how charged, how intoxicating the scene inside had become. Then, silence. The kind of silence that stretches and thickens, heavy with possibility. My stomach twisted. Did they leave? Were they just teasing? Every nerve in my body screamed with anticipation. Isabella's hand found mine again, grounding me, a subtle reminder that I wasn't facing this alone. "I don't know who it is," she whispered. "Should I?" Before she could finish, the door handle rattled once more. This time, it didn't stop. Whoever was on the other side was determined, pushing forward, bringing the outside world dangerously close to the fragile bubble we had created. I backed away slightly, skirt brushing against the furniture, breath catching as I calculated possibilities. Could I hide? Could we bluff? Or would this be the moment everything spilled, the secret, the thrill, the transformation, all revealed in one shocking instant? Isabella's gaze locked onto mine, a silent question burning between us: "Are we ready?" I nodded almost imperceptibly, heart pounding, knowing that once the door opened, nothing would be the same. The exhilaration, the fear, the vulnerability, all of it hung suspended, poised on the edge of revelation. And then, just as my hand reached for the door, the knock stopped. Silence filled the room again, heavier, almost accusing. My pulse slowed slightly, though not entirely. Someone was out there, somewhere, aware that something was happening behind that door, but for now, the threat lingered, unresolved, dangerous, and thrilling. Isabella let out a breath, leaning closer, whispering, "We need to be careful, they could come back any second." I nodded, aware that our lives had changed. The secret I had kept, the identity I had nurtured in solitude, was no longer mine alone. Isabella had stepped into the circle of revelation, and now the outside world threatened to crash in at any moment. We exchanged a look, a mixture of fear, excitement, and something deeper, anticipation, perhaps, of what might come next. The secret was exposed, yet hidden, alive, and dangerous. The screen would fade to black here, leaving the audience suspended. Who was at the door? Would they discover our secret? How would Isabella react if someone else knew? And most importantly, how far would Alex go to embrace this side of himself, now that the thrill and vulnerability were no longer contained? The final thought lingered, a teasing question for the viewers. If this had happened to you, what would you do? Would you hide, confront, or embrace the truth?